the Model UN program to all of our teachers and schools. So it's about 4 o'clock now. I will go ahead and get us started here. I did put a little note in the chat for everyone just to get a sense of who's in the room. So please feel free to introduce yourself, let everyone know what middle school you are representing today, or if you're representing a group. Sometimes we have homeschool groups that are with us too. Feel free to share that information and let us know how many years you've been a part of the program. We have some faculty advisors that have done our Model UN program for many, many years, and some that are going to be brand new, and we definitely welcome everyone. And do know that we will be recording our session today, so if you miss anything, or if someone you know isn't on the call today, we'll be sure to get all of the materials to everyone so that you have it. Okay, I will go ahead and get us started here. So I know most of you are probably faculty advisors that have been with the World Affairs Council for many, many years, but I did just want to introduce ourselves in case there are, I do see in the chat there are some folks that are going to be joining us for their first year, so it's important to know who the World Affairs Council is as an introduction to our Model UN program. So the World Affairs Council was started in 1949. We've been around for 71 very long and storied years, and we are a private, nonprofit, nonpartisan educational organization that's dedicated to engaging people of all ages in matters of both national and international significance. And as many of you know, our simulation programs for students is definitely one of the bigger ways that we are able to achieve our mission. But on the side of this slide, there are some of our key goals of what we do strategically across all of our programming. So one of the things that we sort of anchor ourselves in is increasing the understanding of international and domestic policy issues among our members and the general public. Also, we exist to assist the corporate and professional leadership of the region to meet the growing challenges posed by globalization and to meet their own objectives in staff, client, and prospective client development. And of course, the reason why you're all here today, because we help high school and middle school students become globally aware citizens and serve as a key resource for teachers. So, thanks so much, everyone, for continuing to drop in the chat. That's great. I just want to take another second to introduce ourselves while you're introducing yourselves in the chat. My name is Kristen Hutchinson, Vice President of Education for the World Affairs Council. I'm joined this evening by Eric Bumbaka, my colleague who is Director of Student Programs. Hi, Eric. And my colleague, Casey Trapp, is Associate Director of Student Programs. She's currently on maternity leave. So the World Affairs Council family just grew by one just a couple weeks ago. So we're really excited about Casey and her new addition that she welcomed just a couple weeks ago. So I love these pictures because, as I said, we've been around for 71 years. And one of the great things about our program is that there is photographic proof. So on the screen, you'll see some really great photos from the council and some of our Model UN programs from, I think, the 60s, which, fun fact, were hosted at the Penn Museum, decades ago. So it's interesting how things kind of come full circle for us. But of course, our podium programs, we've brought current and former world leaders, academics, journalists, ambassadors, and scholars to our podium to speak to our members at large. And I want to encourage you all, you are in the Model UN program, but you are also members of the World Affairs Council of Philadelphia. And so you'll constantly get a lot of emails from us about these speaker events and webinars that you can now attend virtually. I want to encourage you all to take advantage of them. It's kind of like continuing professional development for you guys, as being members of the World Affairs Council. And we constantly have a great roster of speakers coming up. And I know Eric dropped in the chat the link to our speaker events page. Just know that as an education member, Eric will send Eric will send out emails to you that have a link to register for a complimentary ticket. So if you go to our website, of course, it's for our members and the public to pay for programs, but you're a member. You can attend these programs for free, and your colleagues, your spouses, they can also attend for free. So please, please take advantage of this. I don't think enough teachers do, and it's part of one of the great perks of being part of the World Affairs Council. So moving right along, of course, we are shifting to kind of present day. So I love these photos as well. We've got some great photos of our education program for middle school students, Model UN, also for high school students. We don't do Model UN for high school, but we do also simulate sort of large-scale conferences where students have to, research a country and assume the role of a diplomat or delegate. And our programs really do seek to build those soft skills in students, collaboration, negotiation, diplomacy, public speaking, right? And of course, Model UN has this research component, which is so critical to the success of students in our program. So just really a pleasure to be able to work with the council and your students in our programs. And we are really looking forward to this year. So I do want to make a really great announcement. The council very recently has appointed a new president and CEO. Craig Snyder, our outgoing CEO, will be finishing up with us in October and moving on to the next stage of his career. But I wanted to take the time to introduce Lauren to you all kind of virtually, because we're really excited that she's going to be starting with us. I just had my first meeting with her just a couple minutes ago, and we're just thrilled about all the great leadership initiatives that she's going to be starting with us in just a couple weeks' time. And Lauren comes to us as, a former Deputy Director of Commerce and part of the City of Philadelphia's Department of Commerce arm. So she has this really great expertise in terms of international business, where she led specifically initiatives to grow Philadelphia's position in the region. So we're really excited to welcome her on board, and I'm sure you'll see a lot of her virtually in the next couple of months. So now I want to shift gears and talk specifically about Model United Nations. I can't talk about Model UN without thanking our program partners. As some of you know, we partner with the Penn Museum. We also partner with Temple and St. Joe's, who support us through our Global Smarts Mentoring program, and also provide additional in-kind support for us. And a lot of you that have worked with us before are very familiar with how we work with your schools. But for those of you that are new to the program, it's really important that I go over the faculty advisor role, because it is a key part of Model UN. You are the ones that connect us to your students. And we're so grateful for that support. But typically at each school, there is one, or in some cases, two faculty advisors that serve as the lead point of contact between your school, your students, and the World Affairs Council. And the faculty advisor role is critical. This person serves in this role for a full academic year, and they're the person that signs their group up for participation in Model UN. You're also responsible for recruiting students, and I know some of you probably have all different types of ways that you recruit students. I know at some schools for Model UN, there's like a waiting list to be a part of the program. In some schools, it's part of your curriculum. In some schools, you run it as an after-school club. So, the way you run Model UN is completely up to you and your school and what you're able to facilitate with your administration. But I know that a lot of schools do have some type of Model UN or World Affairs Club. And I don't know, obviously, with everything being virtual this year, there's just so many variables around extracurriculars. And so I'm hoping we'll have some time to talk about what your ideas are for Model UN this year and recruiting students. And if you all are going to think about having something like a Model UN club where students can kind of gather and spend time to do research virtually with our program this year. So I'm now going to turn the virtual podium over to my colleague, Eric, who's going to dive a little bit deeper into the Module UN timeline for this year. And we're going to start to talk a little bit about what our programs are going to look like as well. So Eric, do you want to take it away?
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Kristen. I appreciate it. And it's good to see all of you again, and good to see some new faces as well. Thank you guys for your interest and for eventually joining us for the 2020-2021 Junior Model UN program. We're really excited about this. This has definitely been a new experience for us as we planned for this year's iteration of the Junior Model UN program, but we're really excited about all the plans and procedures that we've put in place to hopefully make this as successful as any other year. So, the first thing to probably cover is that this program will be done entirely virtually for this year, regardless of what happens in the public health sector. We really feel that we're going to pursue a totally virtual program for the 2020-2021 Junior Model UN, just to eliminate any kind of uncertainty. We'll just start the year with saying that it'll be entirely virtual. We've also selected a really interesting topic for this year that we're really excited. We announced it a few weeks ago, but it's ensuring healthy lives and promoting well-being for all. It's obviously a very timely topic to choose for this program. It will, students will be very interested in the coronavirus and the global response to the public health crisis. But we also don't want to forget some of the other really important aspects of public health that students should be aware of, and we feel is really important, regardless of whether your students will be studying the impacts of the coronavirus directly or other aspects of public health. So we'll get to the topic in a little bit, but I just wanted to again say that that's one of the highlights for this program. Absolutely. So with that said, we've had to adjust this year's program to fit the virtual model. And first and foremost, we wanted to keep some of the major tenets of a World Affairs Council program. We love in our programs the dialogue that students have with each other, those conversations, whether they're around roundtables or twisting in their seats in the auditorium, in the Harrison Auditorium at the Penn Museum. We want to keep those conversations and that dialogue as consistent year to year as possible, even if students are in a virtual program this year. So what we've done is we've decided to limit the number of students that are participating on a single day of our programming, but increase the number of program days. And I'll get to this in more detail in a second. But essentially, we want to increase the number of program days so that we can lower the number of students per day, so we can continue to have those really good conversations as much as possible. However, with that, we are increasing the costs of our program, not only in staff time, but the number of expert speakers and outside participants and contributors that we need for this program. So we are instituting a new pricing scheme for this year. There will be two levels of our pricing scheme. There's at the $50 level, there will be a self-facilitated final conference, and I'll get into this more in detail in a second. But it's set for $75 per student. The council will facilitate your final conference with you with the help of trained and seasoned Model UN co-chairs. So for all of you who remember the final conference, even though we didn't have one last year, in previous years, we have trained collegiate co-chairs that come in and help run our final conference. And those are really valuable students who donate their time and energy to work with your students. And that's something that we want to try and provide again this year, albeit in a virtual format. So Kristen, do you want to just go ahead to the next slide? So this is a little complicated, and it makes a lot of sense to Kristen and I, who have been in the weeds designing this program for essentially since March of last year. We've really had to think about how we're gonna do this program again this year. So we're breaking down that one topic of ensuring healthy lives and well-being for all into 6 subcommittees. So we're doing one topic, but 6 subcommittees this year. And your school will only be assigned to one of the 6 subcommittees. So you don't have to worry about stretching yourself over 6 different topics or anything like that. your school will only be assigned to one of these 6 subcommittees. And they are reducing maternal mortality and protecting children, fighting communicable diseases, which obviously we'll probably touch on the COVID pandemic as well, reducing illnesses and death from pollution, potentially touching on issues of climate change there, achieving universal health coverage, expanding universal access to vaccines, which might be a very interesting one with the upcoming coronavirus vaccine that we're all hoping for. And finally, supporting the health workforce in developing nations. So I think this is a really good cross-section of public health topics that students will find really interesting and that are directly descendant from the Sustainable Development Goals that the United Nations provides. So this is all wrapped up in Sustainable Development Goal number 3, which we think is going to make really good content for your students. So, you know, just to skip over some of kind of the logistics here, but there are 6 program days for the final conference. And when you register, you'll ultimately select all of the days that you're available for. And given your availability, we will assign you to one of the 6 subcommittee topics. Just so you know, day 1 isn't necessarily reducing maternal mortality and protecting children. That might be a day 5 topic, and we might switch things around just based on scheduling and access to various components of our program, whether that's expert speakers or co-chairs or the like. So, Kristen, is there anything that I missed on this slide or the previous slide that you'd like for us to cover before we keep moving?
I'll add 2 quick points, Eric. I think you covered everything pretty cohesively, but the other 2 things I want to just say briefly is, you know, we've definitely thought critically about students and their ability to kind of do the final conference and what screen time looks like, right? So we couldn't possibly turn our in-person program, which usually runs from like 8:30 to 2 p.m. into a virtual program, right? So you'll notice in this draft framework, there's an AM slot and a PM slot. So because there's less students, we can kind of condense the Model UN program into a morning session and an afternoon session, effectively reducing the amount of time your students will have to be in front of a screen, but not sacrificing the quality and substance of the Model UN experience. So just wanted to say that. And the other thing is on the 6 subtopics. These were not kind of chosen willy-nilly. These are actually, as Eric kind of alluded to, the sub-targets as part of this goal, Sustainable Development Goals. So what that means is that the UN actually has tracked progress on these different sub-targets. And so for research purposes, it'll be really great for your students and for you to be able to find resources specifically related to these subtopics and the health topic as a whole. And then the last piece is the resolution piece. So I know a lot of you, if you've worked with us before, you know that we had these like different committees and there would be different resolutions for 2 topics every year. Obviously, trying to minimize some of that, we decided to do 1 topic, and essentially the entire cohort of Model United Nations students will be all contributing to 1 resolution on the topic, which we think is really, really cool and something that we haven't obviously been able to kind of do in our in-person program. So that'll be another really unique facet of this kind of virtual model that we are toying with for this year.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll turn it back over to you, Eric.
Yeah, of course. One more thing that you just sparked in my memory that I'd like to address also is the country assignments. So in previous years, your students would be assigned to a handful of countries, depending on the number of students that you're registering. Same thing again this year, and you will have the opportunity to request country assignments. I know that some of you build that into your curriculum more than others, and so we will be doing country assignments this year. We are asking, just because of the virtual component of this, that we're gonna try and do student pairings in triplets this year instead of just pairs. We feel that the triplets might be a little bit better for dialogue in a virtual setting and can account for maybe students having technology issues or inability to access or you know, internet's down for a day, so that students are no longer, wouldn't be by themselves for a day virtually if you're working, you know, on this project from in a school setting. Yeah, is there anything else, Kristen, before we move on? No? Okay. So the general timeline, and Kristen, do you mind dropping the timeline into the chat as well while we talk through this? The general timeline for the Junior Model UN program is the same as it's been for as long as I've been with the council, and probably as long as you've been with the council as well, Kristen. In January, we'll be doing the Cultural Diplomacy Conference, held over 3 dates. In January, I believe it's the 3rd week in January. It might be the 2nd, but it'll be on the schedule that Kristen just posted. In March, we'll be doing the Junior Model UN Prep Conference. The Prep Conference is the conference that we feel is most easily transitionable to a virtual setting. So we'll be doing that virtually over a couple of days in March. I believe the 1st week in March. And then finally, the final conference will be held in May. That's stretched out over 2 or 3 weeks. We have 6 program days, I believe, for that, just to help us as we try and schedule multiple schools and meet as many scheduling complications as possible. And we're going to cover the Cultural Diplomacy Conference in detail in a second. Kristen, do you want to advance? Oh yeah, great. So we're going to actually do a couple of polls. So I'm going to turn that over to Kristen real quick.
Thanks, Eric. Yeah, so this is a question that's in our registration form this year, but we did just want to kind of gauge everyone that is joining us this evening for our Welcome Back program to indicate your top preference of virtual learning platform for Model UN this year. So at the top of the slide, you'll notice there is a link that you can respond to the poll, and then we'll be able to kind of check responses in real time. So what I'll ask you to do is, if you have a browser window, you can type in that link, or you can also answer on your phone if you text our little handle, which is education T, no M, it's a free account, sorry, 714, that nonprofit life, right? And you'll be able to respond to our poll. So I'll give you guys a couple of seconds to go ahead and type in, oh yeah, sure. Eric, can you copy and paste or just type in the chat the link? That's a great idea, Rachel. Thank you so much. We'll post that in. And I'll give you all a couple of seconds to respond to our poll.
Sorry, I put the M in.
Education T 714. All right, we're getting some responses coming in now. I know that a lot of your schools are kind of, allowing your students to engage through one virtual platform, maybe over another. So we're hoping to kind of gauge your top preference of virtual learning platform, and we'll see on the screen the live results from everyone participating in the poll as they kind of get into the responses. So I'll give you a couple more seconds to respond. And just know the World Affairs Council, we've been using a mixture of different platforms, and we've been thinking, if schools are more, used to using one platform over another, we can definitely try to adjust some of our programming. Interesting, okay. So seeing some folks saying Google Meet, Microsoft Teams, not seeing anyone saying Zoom, GoToWebinar, or WebEx, but I'll give everyone another minute or two. If you're having any difficulty like technical difficulty, you can just type in the chat what your top preference would be.
Yeah, I've gotten another vote for Google Meet and another vote for Zoom in the chat.
Okay, great. Yeah, thank you.
Again, we're going to ask this in the registration form, which will go live as soon as this meeting is over, and so that'll be kind of our more formal capture of this data. But this is helpful to know, so thank you. Yeah, just a note on flexibility. We work with I think it was 36 schools last year in the Junior Model UN program, which covers, I don't even know how many districts across multiple states also. So this is a lot of, there are a lot of different needs, both scheduling wise and technology wise, and we're gonna do our absolute best to meet every school where we can. And where you guys can. So that's just a note from us in terms of where we're able to meet you guys on some of this virtual learning stuff.
Yeah, great. Thank you guys so much for responding. This is really helpful. And like Eric said, this will be in our registration form too. So we'll get that information across the whole swath of schools and be able to factor that into decisions about the final conference if it's council facilitated. Okay, so thank you all for participating in our little poll here. Eric, I'll turn it back over to you to kind of chat through our timeline. And for those of you that are following along, you can, I dropped in the chat the PDF to the full document, but we'll kind of chunk it out in our presentation as well and go through some important deadlines that you all should be aware of.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're already halfway through September, as crazy as that sounds. We are already almost to October. Today, the 16th, is obviously the opening of our Junior Model UN registration and this meeting as well. So we're happy to open enrollment starting as soon as this meeting is over. I'll post it to the website. The deadline to register is Friday, October 23rd. Again, our program fills up fairly quickly. Again, unknown how that's going to affect, virtual learning and the coronavirus is going to affect registration this year. But I do encourage you guys to register as quickly as possible once you know your student numbers and have an idea of what country assignments you might have, and then your school schedule as well for those dates in January, March, and May. But we will be closing registration on Friday, the 23rd. For those Global Smart Schools, Friday, September 18th is the deadline for prospective partner schools to reapply for Global Smart. So that's this Friday, September 18th. If you don't know what Global Smarts is, we will cover that in a little bit. And so don't worry about it right now. In November, we are going to send out our confirmed program dates and country and committee assignments to each of you. Wednesday, November 25th is the day before Thanksgiving. So that's typically the last day for schools. And that'll be the last day for us before we go on break for Thanksgiving holidays as well. And so our hope is to send out all of those confirmed program dates, country and committee assignments by right before Thanksgiving, if possible, so that you would have that to work with your students starting post-Thanksgiving break. This year, we're also breaking out our, if you remember the previous years, we've had your country and culture profile worksheet. We are actually going to break that out into 2 separate worksheets this year for you to do optionally with your students. So a country profile worksheet is going to be a very basic, deep dive into your country's, politics, economy, geography, so that your students kind of get a sense of the profile of your country. And then we'll be doing a culture worksheet separately for the Cultural Diplomacy Conference in partnership with the Penn Museum. Kristen, do you want to go on to the next slide? Great, so here are our dates for the Cultural Diplomacy Conference. Sorry, I didn't remember them off the top of my head, but they are Wednesday, January 13th, Thursday, January 14th, and Friday, January 15th. Again, it'll be held virtually, and we will be exploring kind of some details about that conference in a second. We actually have a draft schedule for that, and we're really excited to show you guys our draft schedule and get your thoughts on the viability of it, moving forward. We really think it's strong, but any feedback that you would love, that you would give, we would love to receive. In March, we have our virtual prep conference. Again, that's Tuesday, March 9th, Wednesday, March 10th, and Thursday, March 11th, 2021. We have our position papers tentatively due for Friday, March 26th. Again, all of these are ideal for us when we sketched out our yearly program schedule, but with the amount of uncertainty that we're all living with right now, these are subject to change. But this is our kind of ideal program schedule moving forward. And do you want to go to the last slide? Great. We have our resolution deadline set for Friday, April 30th. And that gives us enough time to turn around our final resolution made available to you on Thursday, May 7th, with final conference dates on Tuesday, May 18th, Thursday, May 20th, and Friday, May 21st, Tuesday, May 25th, Thursday, May 27th, or Friday, May 28th. Again, you will be assigned to one of these dates for the Cultural Diplomacy Conference, the Prep Conference, and the Final Conference. So don't block out all of these dates. You'll just need to attend one of each of those 3 conferences. When you register, just a quick note, there will be check boxes for you to select. We really do ask that you choose all of the dates that your school is available, not just that, that one date that is best for you and your students' schedules, but all of the dates, because we are working with many schools again this year, hopefully, and that's going to make scheduling complications pretty tough. And so the more flexibility that you guys give us in your registration document, it would be really appreciated, just on, kind of the back end behind the scenes stuff that Kristen and I work on. Okay, great. Yeah, so this is the Cultural Diplomacy Conference, and this is going to be kind of a good example of what we're hoping our schedules for all 3 of our virtual conferences look like. But this was drawn up by Ruji, who works at the Penn Museum. She's actually on the call with us. Thank you for joining us, Ruji. We really appreciate it. But here's kind of just a general idea of what we're hoping our students will be able to do with us during the Cultural Diplomacy Conference. We want to limit the amount of time that students are, singularly focused on their screens, and giving them the ability to, get up and stretch and walk around. On a side note, I'm actually interested in, and we could discuss this later, but your schedules, your school schedules, and how much students are facing screens before they're given some sort of break to, disengage. But that's a conversation for later on in this session. But we're going to start with an hour's worth of opening presentations and keynotes. We think that that's a really good time to introduce some of the key concepts that we want our students to walk away from the day with. And that'll be a little bit of both the Penn Museum and the World Affairs Council of Philadelphia engaging in those keynotes and welcoming remarks. A break is built in right after that before we go on a virtual tour of the Penn Museum's facilities. They've done an incredible job turning, I believe, every single one, and Ruji, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but every why can't I think of the word? Every portion of their museum is available via virtual tours, guided virtual tours, which is really exciting, not only for our students, but for the general public as well. So you'll be assigned to one of those 4 tours, virtual tours, which I believe will be conducted live. I believe, and again, Ruji, you can jump in and correct me if I'm wrong. There will be a 30-minute break following those tours, where we'll then do the international classroom workshops, which, if you've done our programs before, is a great opportunity for your students to hear directly from an educator, often from abroad, who gives some great, nuanced, real-world, lived experience in relation to some of the artifacts and exhibits that the Penn Museum has. So that's scheduled for an hour, and we're really excited about that opportunity as well. Another 30-minute break for, kind of a pseudo lunch break there at 12:30 before a closing presentation, tentatively scheduled from 1 to 2. We're still working on kind of some of the specifics of what that closing session would look like. But, we have some time to work out all of these specifics for this program. So, Kristen, is there anything that I missed, or Ruji, if you have anything that you wanted to jump in with, now would be a great time as well.
One of the things I will say that we spoke a little bit about was, one of the great parts of the Cultural Diplomacy Conference, it's the kickoff to Model UN, right? So it gets students super interested in this journey that they're going to take over the course of the next 5 months through the lens of culture and diplomacy. And I know those of you that have experienced the keynote before know it is not your typical lecture. So, one of the things that we've been thinking of critically is how to make it just as, immersive and engaging as we do at the actual Penn Museum. So as you know, there's a lot of call and response in the presentation. So we're thinking critically about using tools like polls and those types of virtual features to still elicit feedback from the students during the Cultural Diplomacy Conference keynote presentation. Yeah, I don't know, Ruji, if you want to kind of jump in and say anything else.
I would just say hello, everyone. But I would just say that so all the things that are currently available as examples in this tentative schedule are available. Again, it's still in the work. So it also be a very much welcome feedback from all of you as educators who are doing this virtual work now day to day to give some feedback as far as the timing of different things that we're planning to present. But what you will note here is that we are trying to offer the same elements and experiences as what you experience at the museum. So with the tour and the international classroom educators and presentations, sort of opening and framing that conference and also giving them a solid conclusion to it as well for the day. So, but as far as the technical piece and the viability of time frames and breaks, all of that, we would love to hear feedback on what that looks like. Yeah, but I think the other note that I think Eric mentioned too, as far as what's currently available, the team at the museum definitely has been solid in making all of these tours and other items available virtually. So the ones you see here are the ones that are ready now, and we're hoping to have more available in January. So again, as we flesh things out, this may look slightly different on the actual conference date.
Yeah, thank you, Ruji. And thank you for everything that you do on the Penn Museum side. I know that most of our faculty kind of see me and Kristen the most, but Ruji is a great example of one of our fantastic partners who helps make these programs possible. So thank you, Ruji, for joining us today and for everything that you and your team does at the Penn Museum. Kristen, do we want to go to, I believe it's the last slide.
Yeah, you know, I think before we shift to the last slide, I'd love to open the floor to questions from you all. I know we've presented so much information and it's probably like, you know, information overload, but our team is honestly, in my opinion, pros at the logistics side of things. You know, we are able to make things work, but we want to hear from you. You know, what's your initial feedback on some of this? Where do you see challenges with your students engaging and connecting with us? Did I see a question in the chat?
Yeah, we have a question from Lori that asks, are you going to have breakout rooms for that? I assume for the Cultural Diplomacy Conference, or are you going to have 250 students attending and listening to the opening and welcome all at the same time? I would say we are still in the discussion and decision phase with our virtual platform that we're going to use. And our virtual platform, I think, is going to dictate a little bit of the structure of this. So if those, if we have to use certain virtual platforms over others, maybe we have to break that keynote into 3 separate keynotes that are running simultaneously. Or if it's more of like a webinar type format where there's less engagement from students during that, we might be able to do it as all students attending one lecture. But again, we want to capture in that registration form the virtual platforms that you guys are capable of using, because that really is going to help us you know, put some of the final touches on our program schedule and structure for this program. Kristen, is there anything else you wanted to add to that question?
No, that was a great question. So thanks, Lori. Anyone else have any questions with regards to, you know, the Cultural Diplomacy Conference is our first program. And I'm really curious to hear some of you all, especially in terms of the length of the day, you know, the amount of screen time. You know, obviously we are still, you know, all of your students are going to be engaging with us in different facets. So I know, you know, some schools are, you know, all the students at this point, you know, in January could all be, you know, home connecting virtually with us, right? So any thoughts that you guys have to share, you can drop in the chat and we'll address your questions. And I think too, we can open up to just general questions about the program, the timeline and final conference or anything. If you guys want to.
The time looks good for like looking at the blocks of time. Typically here, our blocks are 40 minutes, 42 minutes to be exact. However, even virtually last spring, I had like a mock trial simulation. The kids were on for 2.5 hours. I wanted to get off. They didn't want to get off. So, so I think, if they're engaged, your time looks good in terms of blocks of time, and having the 30-minute breaks, I think, is really great.
That's really helpful, Mark. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, I see a question in the chat from Jim, and he's saying, for folks who've done this before, do you have advice for how to handle signups? Our clubs at my school are just starting to advertise, and I'm trying to figure out how to do so efficiently to determine signups to register in time, while also knowing that the bulk of the program won't be starting until later in the year. That's a great question. So any of our, I guess, our, faculty advisors that have been part of our programs, for many years, how are you approaching signing your students up for Model UN this year?
Well, I'm at Tradition Easttown School District, and we have a large number of students that participate in the past. So a lot of the students are returning from the previous 2 years or a year. And so what I do is I have our send out an announcement for any any students that are interested. And then I give them a written assignment just to kind of limit our numbers a little bit and to demonstrate their commitment. So they'll do a written assignment on one of the topics, previous topics from the UN. And then, if they do well with that and the numbers, we will add them to the program. Because our numbers in the past are pretty long. I'm not sure how the virtual is going to work out. This is new. So our numbers are probably going to be a little lower, a lot lower maybe. I'm not sure. But right now we have about 25 committed students from the previous years that are going to, be involved. And another, hopefully I answer your question. I think just put it out there, some type of announcement. The other question I have, I don't quite understand, you have two prices, you have a $50 and a $75. So if I decide to go with $50 per student, does that entitle me to all 3 of the conference or just 2 of the conference, and then they don't get to participate in the final conference? Is that how it works?
Yeah, so I'll just briefly address that. So at the $50 level, you get the same access as the $75 level to the first 2 programs, Cultural Diplomacy Conference and the Prep Conference. You get the exact same amount of support and work with the World Affairs Council. It's just that 3rd program, the final conference. You would be at the $50 level. You'd be expected to run the conference kind of on your own. And David, you actually had some experience trying to run a final conference on your own, and it went fairly successfully, if I remember correctly from the spring. But yeah, you would be responsible for kind of orchestrating that piece of the final conference on your own. At the $75 level is where we would, jump in and provide experienced Model UN co-chairs to facilitate a final conference for you.
But you'll still recognize the resolution papers that we submit and all those things?
Absolutely, yeah. Okay. So basically, there's a large cost to providing those co-chairs for you guys. And in order to cover our expenses, we need to be able to generate a little bit more revenue in order to pay our co-chairs.
I totally understand. I just know that our school district, we're a large number and ask for 50 compared to $75.
It's a difference.
They might have some issues.
Yeah.
So I'm but I think I totally understand. I totally agree that, you have to cover costs as well. So thank you. I appreciate that input.
Yeah. And, just on that same note, I know there's a little line there about, and there's a little typo at the end too, so I apologize for that. But we do have scholarships available for Title I schools and students from economically disadvantaged backgrounds. It's need-based and available upon request. So I do just want to throw that out there. Of course, the schools that are involved in our Global Smarts mentoring program, that's completely different. But for all of our schools that are part of the Junior Model UN program, do know that support does exist if it's needed and requested. I saw another question about will faculty attend the virtual conferences too? And the answer is yes, absolutely. So that would have happened in person. You know, you would have typically accompanied your students to the program as well. The only thing is that you don't have a real role, right? You're kind of like a fly on the wall, observing the program, of course, this year virtually and from a distance, and your students' participation in the program. But I do know, especially in the prep conference, teachers honestly took such an active role at certain parts of the program in, you know, going to the breakout tables with their students and encouraging their participation. So I'm hoping we can kind of figure out a way to still make that happen for you all, because I know in a lot of cases, especially the prep conference, because that's the first program where the students really get the chance to interact with the other kids in the program, right? It's so important that you're able to encourage their participation and so on and so forth. So you will be attending the virtual conferences with your students on the same day that your school is assigned. Yeah, Lori, that's a great point about the students you know, not being recruited if they're part of a class. A lot of our Model UN groups do actually facilitate Model UN as part of a class. So they don't have that kind of recruitment challenge, but they do have the challenge of, you know, if students are in a class, there might be students that, you know, are still a little skeptical about Model UN to start, and then hopefully, you know, they get over that hurdle once they kind of start getting in the research kind of experience. So
I have two questions.
yeah, go ahead.
One thing is, are we still going to get the briefing paper like we have in the past years?
Yes, and actually, we've made a huge effort in making sure that you're actually going to get these briefing papers far earlier. So thank you, Lori, for asking. And another difference for this year is that because we have those subtopics, let me see if I can actually zoom back out to our draft framework for a little clarity here. We're doing a separate paper for each subtopic as well. And resources, of course, will accompany each subtopic and our general program topic too. Lori, you had a second question?
Yeah, and I would add that I think that the additional links and resources that you've given with the briefing papers, like probably the last 2 school years, have been very advantageous. Have been helpful. And then my other question, I don't know if this is possible. I know what my school district is doing, and I'm guessing other school districts are dealing with this. So we all, a lot of us have cohorts. So on a given day, there's only certain kids that are in the classroom with us, or certain kids that we're allowed to expect contact with. Now, I know that like my school district may decide for this particular program, the kids who are at home that day are required to sign on. But at the same time, my district may say, we can't require the kids who are at home that day to sign on. So would you at all consider if schools have like, if I have say 25 kids, but I want these 13 to come in on a Monday or a Thursday and those kids to come in on a different day, like how would you work on that for school districts that don't want to require both cohorts to be on virtually at the same time?
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Eric.
Now, are you speaking about our conferences or about, you know, group work outside of the 3 conferences?
I think conferences.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I can work it around, like I can put kids in triplets based on their cohorts.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking that like when we normally, my whole school would have gone to the conference on the same day.
Right.
So I'm wondering like what would happen, not just for me, but for any teacher in the region, if they have cohorts and their district is only allowing the kids to do work live on the camera on their cohort day, for example, like could you split schools in half if you needed to do something like that?
Yeah, I think the short answer is yes. We can do that. What would happen is once you register, or even before your registration, we should have a conversation about, you know, what exactly your school specific needs are, and then we can do our best to meet those needs where you are. Something just like splitting students over 2 program days isn't that tough ultimately to accomplish. So something like that we could definitely make work.
But then the final conference is just one topic, one day.
Yeah, so that's something.
So that would be the only thing. You could theoretically have to have 2 topics in your class, in your school.
Yeah, and you know, not to get too much into the details, but something like that might have to happen where on a single school basis, maybe your cohorts have different have different topics that they have to study, and you would have to take that responsibility on as the teacher to work with both groups on 2 different topics. But
Right.
that again isn't the hardest, I don't think, to make happen.
We can work around it. Well, that's good, because at least when the teachers will go back to their administrators tomorrow, start to share some of the details from tonight, then we have the pieces to discuss. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. And just another note on registration: if you, we don't need student names for registration. That's a question that we get often. We don't. That's entirely up to you. But if you aren't quite sure the exact number of students that you're going to have, but you do want to secure your spots, you can, register for the program and then just shoot me an email with, we are approximately going to have 25 students for this program, and I'll note that down. I want to make this as easy for you guys as possible. I don't need you guys to know every single student that you're going to have in September, but having a rough ballpark number that you can pretty confidently say that you can get near that number would be helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other questions on anything?
Yeah. I'm sorry. This is Jeff Snyder from Washington Township. The only thing I saw was just on your schedule of the conferences is like, I don't know whether other districts are doing the same thing, but our kids are going home around that 12:15, 12:30 time. So they would be, so when you guys, I guess when that break happens, like that, we would be done. We wouldn't be able to have that closing.
Oh, yeah. That happened actually in previous years at the in-person program too. We usually had the closing and like a lunch afterwards, and some schools did have to leave before the closing. So the beauty of the virtual world is that our parts of our programs are going to be recorded and able to share, after the day that the program is held. So definitely wouldn't worry about that. That's not something that I foresee as being a huge challenge to participation.
Great. Now that was actually, I was just going to ask, are you going to record it? That was perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, and another thing we thought about was, I know your students are probably used to, eating lunch usually during some of these hours that our programs are going to be taking place. So the breaks are there intentionally to make sure that they have the time to do that. It's so important that, they're able to have those breaks and, make sure that they're fed and hydrated so that they have the mental capacity to sit through these conference programs, which we're hoping are more engaging in a sense, and not so much the students being like a passive listener, but they're actually engaging with the speakers. They're asking questions. We're asking questions of them as well. So definitely keep the 1 p.m. portion as asynchronous follow-up activities. Yeah, that's good advice.
Kristen, maybe we should just go to that Global Smart slide and then have anybody who would like to stick around for just one-on-one questions or anything like that. You're more than welcome to. Okay, so just to quickly cover the Global Smarts Mentoring Program, this is a program that has been going on for about 8 years. We have some Global Smarts faculty on board this call, so thank you guys for joining us. The Global Smarts Mentoring Program is actually a subset of our Junior Model UN program, where we pair certain schools in the Philadelphia School District with college mentors from St. Joe's University or Temple University, but primarily St. Joe's University, for some individual small group mentorship work as they prepare for the program. Kristen has previously led and ran this program in previous years. I'll be taking it over this year, and I'm very excited to jump on board. But yeah, this is a program that we feel is really strong and really necessary for the success of a lot of our students, and it provides really good mentorship and skills-based training for our students. Kristen, is there anything else that you wanted to mention with Global Smarts?
The only thing I'll mention here is I do want to make sure that any schools that are struggling with resources to prepare their students for Model UN, through Global Smarts, we have a plethora of lesson plans and activities that are tried and tested because we've been doing them for so many years. We've thrown out the ones that our students don't like. And we want you to take advantage of them. So if you're stuck for resources, if you don't know where to begin, if you want things on public speaking skills or research activities for students, reach out to us. We can pull from our Global Smarts archive and help you with that. Yeah, the only thing I will add is that if you are on the call and you're a Global Smarts teacher, you get correspondence from us with regards to your deadlines and dates that you need to kind of have your information into us by. So just stay in touch with us and make sure that you fill out that partner interest form first before you officially register for Model UN in our full online registration form. And the mentors will start working with the schools in mid-January, I think the week after MLK Day. So just keep that in mind as well. Obviously, Global Smarts, just like Model UN, will be virtual for this year. So the students will connect with your groups virtually.
And we are hard at work this last week or two recruiting our Global Smarts mentors for the next year. So excited to have them start applying over the next couple of weeks. I think that's it, Kristen, unless there's anything else that you noted that we missed. Oh, here are our emails for you guys. If you have any questions for us, feel free to email us. Again, Casey is on maternity leave until the end of October. So we're excited for her to have some time with her new baby boy and then rejoin us as we start really getting into the meat of the Global Smarts, of the Junior Model UN program in the spring semester. Yeah.
The only last thing I'll say too is, just on that same note with regards to the resources that we have, we are your resources too. Don't feel like you can't reach out to us during the program year. We are more than happy to facilitate anything that you need from us, right? So if you wanted to do something where you wanted us to come in and speak to your students about culture virtually, or speak to your students about, how to succeed at Model UN virtually with public speaking and stuff like that, we can work with you and really tailor the program to fit the needs of your students. We realize, especially with this program year, teachers are going to be very overburdened in the virtual environment, and we want to make sure that you guys know we're here. Just reach out and let us know how we can help, and we'd be more than happy to assist you.
Okay, I think if anybody wants to stick around and ask maybe any one-on-one questions, Kristen and I will stay around for a little bit. But we just wanted to say thank you for joining us. And I know 4 o'clock is not a great time to meet, but it's kind of the only time for you guys to meet. So we appreciate you guys joining us after a long day, either virtually or hybrid or in person, wherever you are. So thank you.
Eric, Kristen, thank you so much for all your work on this too. Awesome.
Thank you.
So thanks.
Thank you so much. And if you guys find any great resources, I know some of you get started in the fall. You can't wait until January, so you start working with your kids. Send them our way. We really want to make sure that we tighten this Model UN network that we have this year, and really make sure that we share out any resources that we come across that could be helpful for student preparation. So thank you guys so much. Have a great evening. Stick around if you have any other questions for us.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Yep.
Bye.
Kristen and Eric, I have this one quick question.
Sure.
Yeah.
How do we access the recording or the PowerPoint that you presented? Will you send that out to us? And am I allowed to share with my students the actual recording? And I have some high school advisors that help me out, and they can wrap their head around it a lot quicker than I can, because I have all these other things going on. So I wanted to share the recording and the PowerPoint with them, and so we could have a discussion how to, how we're going to do it at TE Middle. So how do I access this?
Yeah, we'll send everything out tomorrow to you guys. So the recording, you just need the data uploaded to YouTube. So we'll send a link out for that. We'll send the link